Good morning. My name is Schrader. I'm on the AWS Public Policy team. I'm really excited for a fantastic and well-bespectacled panel today. But we've got a great discussion queued up for you here. Hopefully by this time of the summit, you've heard a number of use cases and stories from our customers about how AWS is a springboard for innovation. In this panel, we'll focus on how local, regional, and federal government organizations around the world are developing digital services to improve the lives of their citizens that they serve, increase their efficiency, and execute the missions in their communities. I will let the panelists introduce themselves, give a brief overview of the specific initiatives that they have undertaken, and then we'll dive a little bit deeper into those specific projects and then have some questions for the group. So I will go ahead and let Sarah kick us off.
Hello, I am Sarah Fahden. I am the Chief of the Identity, Records, and National Security Division at USCIS. And our initiatives, specifically in this arena concerning big data and machine learning, include a person-centric service that we recently built, where we took all of the data from several different systems and put it into one system, cleansed the data, deduped it, and made it available for our customers and across the agency. This initiative has greatly increased or improved the accuracy of the data and also reduced lots of inefficiencies across the organization, and we continue to add new microservices.
Hey, oh my God,
that's so much better.
No.
Which will continue to improve other things across the enterprise.
Hi, I'm Andrew Grant, Chief Executive of Aylesbury Vale District Council, which is a local government entity about 40 miles west from London. We have about 200,000 population, about 75,000 households. I think I'm here today to talk about our use of Alexa skill in people's homes to voice command services that we provide and link to their My Account, which gives them control over their data, as Sarah's saying, and choices that they want to make about basic services. We've also introduced machine learning in the call center with a Digital Genius application where it can take web chat and email inquiries and help the agent give an even better answer by looking at all the answers that have ever been given on a particular topic. And now that's going out to residents as automated answers, which residents know it's automated, and getting on with their day, getting the decisions they need in their time and moving on.
Hi, I'm Michael Schnuerle. I'm the Chief Data Officer for the City of Louisville, Kentucky. I'm in the Office of Civic Innovation. It's about a 5-person office, and I'm here to talk about collaborative projects that we've been working on that are open source in the cloud and that we want to be able to let other cities reproduce for free. One of the projects is around Waze data and the data sharing agreement that we can get from Waze around mobility and how people move around our city. And so we built an open source system that I think about 80 cities and governments have been interested in, and about a dozen have deployed so far. So we have a great mayor in Louisville that's been supportive of this, and our office can work closely with our IT department to get things like this done.
Thank you. I think let's start at the local government level with Aylesbury Vale. Can you talk a little bit about how innovation in the cloud is impacting your citizens now?
Well, it gives people choice, and I think that in their modern world is what people are looking for. I mean, citizens face different dilemmas and they come at different points. But I think increasingly it's democratizing their own data, getting it out, as Michael and Sarah said, out of the institution and into the field so people can actually make the right choices for themselves to help themselves, which reduces cost on government. I think we're trying to scale the offer to people so they can feel they can bespoke what they get, and they then make choices about what they need to do, because obviously we're in a very difficult financial situation. We're always looking not just for savings, but how to change the platform of local government. And cloud and things like Alexa, voice commands, it helps people where they're vulnerable and where they want quick access to services, but also reduces the cost footprint of the authority. and makes us more resilient.
And can you tell us a little bit about the specific project in the Alexa skill?
Well, we developed a sort of an Amazon-like My Account. Because we were in the cloud, we were the first local authority in the UK to be in AWS in 2013. And that's still 90% of all local authorities in the UK have no more than 1 or 2 applications in the cloud, let alone the whole, which allowed us to change the way that we could turn our organisation inside out. And then we built a My Account, or with our partners, Arcus Global, built a My Account, which it's basically a data hub in the cloud, and then that's accessed by the citizen to give them their information in their time. And on that platform, which gave them a sort of a place to go to, which we can communicate through, we went from no, as we saw on the keynote, no residents signed up to 50,000 of the 75,000 households in less than 2 years, because people then said that's how we want to roll. And on the back of that, we worked with the proprietary Alexa Echo, because that was going into US, UK and Germany, so we could leverage something we wanted to give people, experiment with a voice-activated command in their home, rather than calling us, based on the whole platform that Amazon were rolling out globally. So we weren't having to invent all that infrastructure of the Echo. People were buying it for Christmas anyway, and beyond just calling up its rainy day playlist, or asking it to do things that to make you laugh, it's something very serious. And so the skill sats in Skill Store, and you'll probably hear others from Michael and others that are using it, and that's how they're living their life. And the council needs to sit with all the things they're consuming generally, not just a separate thing where they have to say they're a citizen as opposed to a customer. And so that skill went out. We put 2 routines in there, collecting diabetic sharp needles, which have to be collected, and special trash collection, you have to say over here, but rubbish waste collection from the doorstep rather than from the drive. And it says, ask my council for a special collection because I'm pregnant or I'm infirm. And it says, it's confirming your details, which it knows because it's in my account. And that goes to the waste crews. It's not rekeyed because it's in Salesforce. And the waste crews know in their routine, in their in-cab technology, to go to number 3, the Glade, to do that for that person. So it's bespoking service. So it's a wider platform. In the end, not many people wanted that service, funny enough. And Michael will tell you what they really wanted to know is what their trash day was. Something much more simple, but that doesn't matter, because had we waited to write everything into the skill, we would still be here writing it. We just start with something, see if it works. They'll tell you what they'd rather have, and then you do that, and then build on that.
And I think, in the private sector, certainly consumers are changing the way that they interact with their services, and delivery speeds are so much faster. And they're not distinguishing, in the public sector, how setting up trash collection should be any different than getting an Amazon Prime delivery.
Exactly.
So can you talk a little bit about how the relationship between your citizens and your organization has changed?
Well, we, as I said yesterday in the panel session, if you were there, that we had what you'd call cloud-first approach back in 2010, because that was to do with, CapEx, OpEx, becoming infrastructure free. But actually what really we were ending, what the main driver is being a customer-first organisation, because if customers who are paying tax but don't know why they pay it, and they think you waste it anyway, if they're not engaged, there's no political dialogue with who they elect. They elect us to do the work that should be in their name, not just in the institution's name, which is very easy for the institution to justify itself and all its stacks and silos and professionals. So it's turning yourself inside out with Sarah will talk about open data, which is a bit of a theme about what government shouldn't have data that they don't want or need. It shouldn't be that secret if it should be, and giving them choices which helps the local authority help them, because we can't employ enough people to help everyone's problem. That's the old business model. If they help themselves with pathways to what they need to do, as you say, they're getting their kids to school, they're trying to get to work, the transportation, they're just trying to get a good day done. We're just not here to make the day worse. Technology, to me, digital is about helping your customers have a better day. It's not about making them really, really applaud how the mayor did what he did or she did. It's about them. It's not about, and so customer value has to be first, not just pay those taxes and you'll get what you want, what we tell you to have. That's the business model that local government's still in, but it has to get out of that because it's not sustainable.
Michael, I want to shift a little bit to Louisville, and can you talk a little bit about your project and the value of that Waze data for governments?
Yeah, so for people that aren't aware, the Waze Data Partnership, I think, is a unique thing that I hope other private companies start doing. But basically, they have 600 government entities that are involved in this data sharing agreement. It's two-way. So city and state governments, and even federal sometimes, will share with Waze road closure information. So where all the construction is and all that in a certain format. In Louisville, we would just put that on our open data portal, and other people consume that as well. And so that's kind of our commitment to the data sharing part. But Waze gives back to the government entities anonymized traffic information, speeds, jams, passively collected information from people using the Waze app, and then actively collected information. So if you're driving, you say, there's an accident, or here's a pothole, or here's a broken streetlight. All that information comes back, and it's kind of a fire hose of information. So out of the 600 partners, I'd say only about 50 are really doing anything with that Waze data, because it's hard to figure out, to build a system. And the ones that have built a system have spent a lot of money on it. I mean, hundreds of thousands, if not more, to build a system that can use this data in their day-to-day operations. So what we did, it took us a year to figure out how to build something. We built an internal Microsoft SQL Server database that ingested this, and then we socialized it through our traffic department and found some great use cases for it. But it wasn't fast enough and streamlined enough, and we couldn't really share our work. So we couldn't say, you know, another city, here, take our work and do it for yourself, because it's this internal system. So we decided to redo it in the AWS cloud. And we did it, we're doing it right now in GitHub. It's open source. We started to do it ourselves. We got about 80 cities that were interested, and so cities started to help out. But it wasn't moving fast enough, so we actually approached Amazon and said, Amazon, can you help us? And so what they eventually did was they gave some credits to a local developer in Louisville called Slingshot, and they're here in the audience. But that developer then used those credits to build out the open source solution, and Louisville is just one of the project managers on the solution that will work for us. Other cities are also helping contribute to the roadmap and the features. Just yesterday, Winnipeg was contributing some information and ideas, and so it has become this bigger project where we have collaboration funded by Amazon, built by a local developer. The cities get this end product for free, and now 12 cities have deployed this in their infrastructure and are using it. And the other 80 out of the 80, they're trying to figure out how to use it or get permission to use the cloud. But it's, I think, a great model for how we can get things done and share our information. And really, the cloud is what makes it replicatable across different jurisdictions.
And with all the data that's being gathered, can you tell us a little bit about what the value of that data is and how it might be used in the future?
Yeah, so in Louisville, we have a number of use cases that I think are really valuable. So probably the biggest one is we can use that Waze data to replace traffic studies. So traditionally, we would pay a company $50,000 to measure a segment of road before and after we convert it. Either we do a signal retiming or we do a road diet. And then they would go out there with clickers and people on the street and people driving it and measure this, and they'd come back with this big report about, you know, how much did the congestion improve or did it get worse. But we used Power BI actually to connect to the cloud database, and a traffic engineer can now go in and say, I want to look at this area with a bounding box over this date range, and it creates a visualization that shows what it was like before and what it was like after, and it's interactive, so they can say eastbound, westbound, choose a road segment that's coming into that bounding box area. And so they can basically do traffic studies now for free at any time they want, and in the past, so they don't have to plan for it. And so now they're just using it almost daily to do these mini traffic studies or even larger ones instead of paying and waiting for that. So that's a big value. There's a few other use cases around looking for hot spots of where we should focus our energy across the whole city. We did a data analysis of that. And another use case is we hold annual events that are big and we close roads, and we'd like to know, are our road closures good or could we improve them for the next year. So we'll do this post-event analysis using the Waze data to see where the jams were and how we can improve the flow of traffic in the future. And we have about maybe 5 other use cases as well, but those are the big ones.
And how could that framework for the Waze data project be used in other applications and projects?
Yes, so once this Waze, we started this back in November, and it's already been moving along so well. We thought this should be replicatable to other projects, so not just Waze. So we created a framework and a kind of another entity called the Open Government Coalition, and that's at govintheopen.com. And what that is that's the same framework of using cloud, finding an interested private company that could fund it, finding a developer that can build it, and then delineating the roadmap for that project for other things. And so some of the projects that people have proposed that are now in this pipeline of other projects that we can do the same thing on are, there's a national broadband map. So we have basically we have it for Louisville and we want to deploy it to the whole nation, but crowdsourced internet speeds for everyone in the nation using information that's already available so that cities can look at digital inclusion efforts and are the ISPs servicing the right areas of the city and being accurate with their speeds or not. That's one project. Another one is a if this then that integration, which it's kind of like the Alexa thing where a government has some services around, or APIs maybe around trash collection or air quality or other things. And so you can hook those into if this then that so that citizens can get that information the way they want to get it, like change the color of a hue bulb when the air quality changes, or get a text message or log the information somewhere in a spreadsheet automatically. And so that also that project gets to the idea of helping the disenfranchised or the deaf or the visually impaired. And so we're partnering with those organizations to build out those connectors. And really there's probably 3 other projects now that are kind of in that Open Government Coalition pipeline.
How could other governments get involved with the Open Government Coalition?
The first thing, the easiest thing to do is just go use what's been created. So go out to you can go to the website and get to the Waze project, and just, if you're a Waze partner, you can just start using it. It takes about 30 minutes to deploy, and then you have this database running, and you can do analysis on it with the tools we have. Another way is if you want to influence the roadmap of one of these projects, you can go in and there's a way to leave feedback and help, either with the direction of it or actually with the coding or the roadmap itself. Or if you have an idea for a similar project, you can go and there's another process for ingesting new projects. So you can link to the start of your idea. It won't be finished, but link to the start and describe the benefits for other governments. And then the other governments can come in, and the Open Government Coalition can help you find those people to connect to that could fund it or build it out for all cities.
Excellent. And I'd like to move to Sarah. Can you tell us a little bit about the person-centric service and how you created it?
Yes, and actually I've been thinking while these guys have been talking, how do I explain what the problem was first so that we can understand the solution better? And so to understand the problem, we really have to go back and talk about what USCIS does as an organization and how we've done it. So historically, USCIS has processed benefits via a very paper-based, form-based process. We have been desperately working hard to try to get off this paper form-based, well actually we've been trying to get off the paper-based process and haven't fully transitioned from it yet. There are over 100 different forms at USCIS to request for different benefit types, and these forms are long and convoluted. And what happens is somebody submits their form in the mail, it then gets scanned, and there are modern tech for scanning documents in and extracting the text off of it, but it's not super accurate yet. And what we're using, the technologies we're using there are probably not as good as they could be. And then there is a very manual process for reviewing the information against the paper form that is now scanned to ensure accuracy, and then edit that data. And then that data is then transferred to whichever USCIS system processes that form type. And so the issue is there are numerous places where this data can have discrepancies. And that doesn't mean that we are providing benefits where we shouldn't be, but what it does mean is that there is a highly manual intensive process associated with each and every benefit approval. And that's it's many-fold because it over and over happens again and again throughout the process of a form, since it has to go through so many different approvals. So every single time somebody's identity data is then validated again and again and again manually. And so in thinking about this problem, and which also this affects other things, like the program that I initially ran before I became the division chief was the verification program, which includes e-verify and save. And so for us, there's also another manual process at the end of that, because when we go and automatically check against our centralized system, which is now under me as well, and it was previously on actually it still is on a mainframe, but hopefully in the next 2 months it'll finally be off the mainframe as a first step to modernizing. When it didn't get back an exact answer, then there's another manual process there. So we thought to ourselves, like, how do we clean this up where we have a centralized location that is very automatic and cleanses the data and creates this central store that includes all of the data about a person, even the mismatches, even when they typoed it in, so that we have that as a record in one place, but properly resolves down to the entity. In other words, it groups the data from all these different systems, there's about 9 systems, together, and then dedupes it, cleans it, dedupes it, and groups by entity, by person, so that we have all the records for identity associated with a person in chronological order, where we can say, here is everything, every interaction we've had with this person. And you can imagine all the other use cases like fraud detection, et cetera, that we can use that system for later on. So we had moved to the cloud several years ago, around 4 years ago, maybe 4 years ago was our initial start of that, and most of our systems are already in the cloud, and that definitely enabled us to move really quickly on this project. And so at the time, I said, we need data scientists for this, and so we brought in the data scientists, and using machine learning, we built this system on top of the cloud using Elasticsearch and lots of other modern tech. And now have stood this up, and it's proving to reduce manual processes in the 80 to 90th percentile. And we have more tweaking, and I think we'll get to around 92 to 94%. You do want to have some manual verification, obviously. There are going to be cases where you do need to manually verify things, but if you can reduce those manual processes by 80 to 90%, I think that we're doing a good job.
Yeah,
I hope.
One of the examples we've done with the machine learning in information coming in, or requests coming in, we've reduced turnaround by 50% using that method in time. And a call to an agent's £2.22, whereas a web chat answered automatically is 10 pence or 10 cents. You know, it's the order of magnitude difference. So it means that your agents can go and do something on the higher end of complexity with some spot checks or some risk assessment, or they can go and help somewhere else in the organization. So it helps you to deploy your people more intelligently.
Right. And so this initial service we built in about a year, and now we're enhancing it and adding new services. Another thing that it's going to assist with is A-number issuance. We found that we have lots of duplicate, actually we have many A-numbers for a single person, and that's because A-numbers are issued within more than one organization. So this service is not going to just benefit USCIS, but will also benefit ICE and CBP and all the other organizations, DHS headquarters, that use this data and rely on this data. So it's exponential, the amount of savings that it will provide across the DHS ecosystem and even beyond that. And so it's pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah. And Sarah, could you talk about some of the challenges that you had to overcome in creating the PCS?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge is honestly translating to the business what machine learning is. Because I think they keep wanting to ask, explain the business logic. What are the actual rules? And and I'm not saying that we're not going to implement rules or that we haven't implemented a rule or two. Each API has its own rules, and then depending on the system that is using the service, a lot of the rules are on that side of it. But that for us has been like a real challenge because the concepts are so forward leaning and just the language, it's really a different language when you're talking data science concepts, that it's been very hard to translate that and give them that sense of confidence. So we're literally having to do it through example. We let them come in and manually test the results, and that's really the best way to bring them on board. And I think what's cool about it is that then they're learning stuff about their own data that they didn't know or think about. We had a discussion the other day, and they had learned something from the data that they were manually validating, and they said, well, this exists, and PCS is not accounting for that. And I said, yes, you're right, and we should account for that, but you're also not accounting for that in the current system that is doing that today. So I think it's great that you're seeing that, because now you're finally getting it. You never would have saw this before had we not shown you this new methodology for providing this type of service to the organization. So it's pretty exciting, but it's been a little bit of a struggle. And I'm not the best communicator, so that doesn't help.
I think if we were here next year on the same topic, we would be talking about culture more. I mean,
Culture, we are definitely, we are definitely facing the cultural challenges around modern tech and being able to build things so much faster. I have found within USCIS, we're building a couple of other systems specifically in this realm. One using text analytics, where we find plagiarism in documents. And it's not quite what you think, because it's not like we can just go use a service that's already out there that finds plagiarism in papers that people are submitting, because it's a specific type of use case. There's specific use cases. And so what I found works for us is I build a prototype real fast within 3 to 6 months, and then we demo the prototype to the leadership and show them what can be done, and then they get very excited about it. And then we move forward from there, and then we expand the team and build out the production system. And so that's kind of the approach that we've been taking, but even with that, it can still be convoluted, especially when you have players come on later on in the game. So.
And Andrew, can you talk a little bit more about the need for a cultural change within the organization?
well, I mean, I said yesterday, culture eats strategy for breakfast, dinner, tea, whatever what you call when you eat, because I mean, we have a phrase, again, not mine, but a colleague of mine, you change the people or change the people. Change the people or change the people. You keep going. You can't do it if they want a faster horse, because they're used to the system. Even with the data, they're finding that helps them be better, and they're marveling at what they've missed. And it's not about it's actually ultimately not about the staff. The staff aren't here for their self-referencing reason that they're here because they've done this for years like that.
Right.
If you think of the customer that's getting to where they need to be using the Waze technology, or they get to the benefit they need sooner, quicker, and all the errs, then your agents, your staff should be really happy that that's happened. But if governments are not customer-centric because they think that's their citizens and they just have to have what they get, then all that does is build a sort of protectionism around the staff saying, we know best, when they don't, because they clearly can't know all the data. And if they could meet that customer face to face, I know they're in an office, they're not, and the customer said, that helped my day be a better day. I could go to do what I needed to do, or tick off something in my to-do list, or fulfill what I need to do. That staff agent would be really, really happy. They'd be fulfilled. So if you turn it into, make the example smaller, step into it quicker, but also say why, if you were the citizen that you were receiving it, and Michael's told me earlier that he was one of those in Louisville, you would feel that you're entitled to that service. So why is your whole organization holding that back? We put all our staff through a cultural behavior assessment center. Everyone, it's not a case of applying for your job. We wanted to look at what behaviors we wanted, which was a more commercial mindset. Not commercialization makes you evil, it's just thinking of the organization as having to earn enough income by trading to pay for those things that will never be priced at the point of consumption. You can't charge for someone who's homeless or needs something, but I need to find enough resources, because I'm not going to get it from government funds or taxes, elsewhere in the organization by deploying your IP to other councils that we help sell to make that customer experience brilliant. And so we put all 450 staff through that. Some didn't want to do it because they finally found out that they've had 20 years, 1 year 20 times, and they weren't too happy. And we've had people that have liberated, that they've gone from, they've passed their behavioural assessment with flying colours, and then only then, once they've passed that, could they apply for a skilled assessment in the organisation. We've had people go from here, if you like, to here, here to here, people from here going, phew, I just want to do this now. And we've brought in 30% new people, people that had never thought of working for local government because it's boring and stale and pale and male. And we've had people from the private sector, from retail, people that worked for Amex coming to us as customer advisors. This lady lived in the, and if I'll tell her that I've told you who she is, I won't name her name, but she lived in the town. She never thought of working for the council because, you know, who works for the council, goodness sake. But we told them what we were trying to do and the mission and how we wanted those people to come and work for them, use their skills in Amex and the leisure industry. And now she's working, leading our customer services centre. So I think you've got to get to culture. And this next year, you need a theme on, you start with, you know, the Jim Collins, who's on the bus, and people are on the bus, they don't care where they're going, but they're on the bus because Sarah's on the bus or Michael's on the bus. And once they're on the bus, you'll get them to say, what do we want to do with now we're here? Not, you know, skills eats culture for breakfast. You can teach people skills. Simon Sinek says that. And we've had people that have learned new things. We've people that have been professionals here that are now running a completely new stack of professionals because they're good at managing people. And we've disassociated the pay grade so that if you're a great person just turning permits, you call them over here, planning permissions, just stay doing that and get as forward to the customer as possible to give them a yes or a no in their time, not in your time. And then disassociate. In the past, you could only go up the tree if you managed other people, which you probably hated, and you had to do 23 performance appraisals, and all you want to do is planning applications. Have those people, and they can get paid the same as people that are generalist managers who don't know anything about their specific area, but they know how to deploy people well. And you have to and we delivered that cultural change in a year with no tribunals with the unions. The unions wanted us to do this because they were fed up with salami slicing. And it's 1 in 5 go tomorrow. Well, what if they're the one person you needed? And they went with the behavioural assessment centre because they know it could liberate skills. And I would do that first before you do any of the tech, but sometimes you can't wait.
No. In our case, we
You've got
definitely
30,000 staff.
But we addressed the cultural moving to agile development and stuff like that within the IT shop probably 7 years ago, where we started to do that. And so like on the team, within the IT team, we have a very flat organization.
Yeah.
We're all one collaborative team. We don't have an issue hiring people there because lots of people want to work for this division anyways, which is awesome because we get great talent. I feel kind of bad sometimes for other teams. But, you know, transitioning, because the way that the organization itself is set up is you have the business-focused groups and then IT separately. And so trying to change that culture has been more of the challenge. And so it's really been breaking down silos between the two different groups and getting them to understand that it's no longer, oh, I'm just lobbying this requirement over the fence to IT. And no, even though we work for different directorates, we're actually one collaborative team. And so we've maintained very, very close relationships with the leadership of these business directorates and sort of just worked to create dedicated product owners for each project. Even small projects within a large project will have several business product owners that are dedicated to the project and get to lead from that. And then it's the side by side, you know, the IT with the product owners together. So it's always a cultural shift when you bring on a new business arena, because I feel like we have to break down that silo once again. But once we get past it, and it takes about 6 months to a year, depending on the personalities and how long they've been there. But once you get past it, then it's really smooth sailing for everybody, and it becomes this amazing, you know, collaborative thing, this culture, right? Where everybody's, you know, lobbying off of each other. Hey, you take care of this, and whether it's business or IT, I'll take care of that. We'll work together to both take care of, you know, this other thing, and it works really, really well. But it's, you know, it's a every man on the ground pushing towards that movement together. I mean, I would love to do that, what you guys did. That's amazing. Like, I'll have to give me that information later, but.
It'll cost you. But you'll love it.
I thought you said it was free.
Nothing's free in this world, but Michael's probably a good example of that.
our stuff's free.
Yeah,
Do you have
well,
cultural issues within?
Oh, yeah, we definitely have
Louisville.
cultural issues. So, I mean, I think, I was telling Andrew this earlier, but the mayoral shift was really important for us. We had a previous mayor, he was great, but he didn't really push the culture forward or do innovative projects. He was kind of more status quo. And so once this new mayor, Greg Fisher, came in, it was like night and day. I could talk to the same people I was talking to before, and now I can get things done, and they would understand it because they have that top-down push. And I've been with the government for about 1.5 years now, and so in that time, I've led a data governance group, which is a cross-departmental group of about 50 people, and we get together monthly. Trying to break down those silos, get that sharing going on, that communication, collaboration going on internally. We do give them trainings and stuff to boost their own skills. And I think that's how we're building that culture. Our innovation office tries to build that culture of innovation across the whole city through this group and through some other groups. We have a badge program, kind of like the Girl Scouts. So if you do certain innovative things, you can earn badges and you get physical rewards and recognition from the mayor and other sorts of prizes and things and a portfolio that you can use. And then we do internal hackathons to try to get people collaborating on new sources of data. And we do analog hackathons to get people interested in the idea of hackathons if they don't know what they are. So there's no computers. We use transparencies and
cool.
things to come up with
Old
the
tech.
framework,
Yeah.
old tech.
Cool.
So we really are trying to build that culture. And I think it's working. It's definitely changed since I started. And we just have a lot more collaboration. We're hiring more skilled and new, fresh kind of people that didn't think they would ever work in government.
Yeah.
And I think that's important to have a little bit of that turnover.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a challenge
good.
though.
Can you all talk a little bit about what's on the horizon for your organizations in terms of either new iterations of the projects you're working on or your cloud journey more generally?
Michael talked about helping people in vulnerable or isolated positions. I mean, I think that's the modern 23rd century problem is isolation and atomized families, and we're all staying well longer, but then there'll be a cliff edge. We're now looking at a project where we're seeking some EU funding, whilst we can still get it in Britain, of course, with Brexit, for where Alexa and other IoT can help keep people at home longer, because once they go into hospital, often they don't come home because, as we all know, it's a different cycle. So we want some funding to help develop the skill in Alexa to, even if Alexa reminds people to keep drinking, because dehydration is a common cause of people getting ill and then going to hospital and not coming out again, or dementia patients to remind them to take their pills, or just to talk to someone, say, can you call my daughter or son, or some third sector people to come and help, to make the first care mile much easier, because that's the expensive bit. You can't have enough social workers to see everyone. So social care, we've already had great examples you've been mentioning, web chat helping people who are profoundly deaf to help communicate with us without needing someone else to translate something for them over the phone. So I think in those sectors, we're going to see a massive growth in health tech and health applications, health generally, but also well-being, and to reduce vulnerability.
Yeah, so our office, we're the innovation office, but every project we do, we try to look at how does it affect disenfranchised groups, and how can we bolster those groups in some way or another. And so all the ones I mentioned, we have that component. But we also do, Louisville's a big health hub. We have Humana there and some other companies, and so we have a lot of health focus as well around air quality and improving outcomes and social determinants of health. So we're doing projects around that, and with all that work comes a lot of data that you need to ingest somewhere and then analyze somewhere and make available somewhere.
That's going to be a
so
challenge. I mean, that's the data
cloud
lake
is the
thing that was
Right.
previous to us. And I think just quickly that the voice is going to be where you can get a human-like response to things without needing to know how to use a tablet or anything. And I think voice, the health professionals tell you, is the last thing that you retain. You might be, in bed or other things, but your voice is the most authentic thing right to the last. So voice is a natural thing for, I think, communities to use.
Yeah. At USCIS, we are very focused on e-processing, getting off the paper submissions and fully transitioning to electronic processing. And so within my division, we're going to be very focused on accounts public, building a solution using PCS as the back end that better provides accounts for the public, and remote identity proofing that will be associated with that at the IAL2 level or above. Well, obviously above would be in person, but we also have the ability to automatically issue accounts when somebody does come into a service center, because then they have been IAL3 identity proofed. And so building in those system interconnections and automatically issuing accounts so that in the future to our benefit applicants, there can be an online service that's much better than the one today, so that they can apply for any different type of benefit that they want to. They can use it to put in a FOIA request. They can use it to use My E-Verify to check themselves to see what their status would come back as for employment verification. They would have this plethora of services that they can get online very easily. So I think that's where we're going to head in the next year.
And as we're wrapping up here on time, would you have any advice for other government executives looking to move to cloud?
Yeah, it's a challenge, I think, at the city level in the United States, at least, talking to a lot of other cities. So I think the biggest thing is to build relationships internally. So you need to be able to work with your IT department, work with your IT director, work with other departments to help them find the use cases of things they want to do that will improve their outcome of their work, and how the cloud can help and prove that value for them. We do a lot of that kind of quick projects to prove value that then we can get buy-in for and potential funding for later. I think that's the way to go, is those people connections, and in building that culture as well keeps that going.
And so, something Sarah's saying about getting the cross authority, whatever it is, to share what it is that they think good looks like, and where IT and business partners, but also the problem owners can see with very fast, rapid proof that things aren't going to blow up in their face if you do this. In fact, if you didn't do something, it would.
Yeah, I would say quick prototypes that illustrate value to the business really quickly. I would say ensure that you have a very solid security foundation that you've built in the cloud first. I think that's very important, and you should be thinking about that from the start, not later on after you've had a data spill. Try to avoid the data spill in the first place. And just keep moving forward, because eventually you'll get there. When you have those roadblocks that get in your way, you just keep on pushing, and eventually you'll get there. Because, it really, being in the cloud enables you to move so much more quickly that it does, like we've said today, become more of a people culture problem than the tech problem.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like we're out of time, unfortunately, but please give a big round of applause to our panelists. Thank you so much.